Here in the third block, it is time for the temple ticker. Corey the Pharaoh Ward himself steps in and tells us all things temple. And it's not just dedications and rededications and buildings and all that stuff. Sometimes it's weird Instagram accounts that he finds and is like, hey, do an interview about this. Or there's other stuff as well. Thanks for being here, sir.
Yeah, your interview with Benjamin Felix was really good. I listened to it
Well,
yesterday.
I have to tell you, thank you for all of that. He's a fascinating, fascinating person. And the schematics of the Kirtland Temple, if we were to finally purchase it and make it our own, is super cool. And I've been able to share it with a bunch of cool people. And they're like, but that's one of a kind. And it is. So thank you.
Yeah.
I told my wife I want it framed for Christmas so I can put it in the walls of my studio. And she said, what even is it? I don't get it.
Yeah, I think that's most people's responses.
Yeah, exactly. What? Okay, cool. Cool. Good for you. We got all things temple, and I'm excited because the first bit of temple news means I'm going on vacation.
Yeah, so the dedication and open house of the Helena Montana temple was announced. So they'll start with the media and VIPs tours May 15th to the 17th. The open house will be May 18th and extend till June 3rd. And then the dedication will be on June 18th. And this will be Elder Gary Stevenson, which will do the dedication.
And it's like it's notable also too in that it's such a quick turnaround, right? From announcement to dedication.
Yeah, about 2 years and 3 months. So definitely this is the fastest Nelson temple. The Hinckley temples, there's plenty that were under 2 years, but yeah.
But several of those Hinckley temples have been rebuilt. So maybe Nelson, we do it a little differently. I like also the distinction of a Hinckley. That's a Hinckley temple. That's a Nelson temple. I'm pretty
Right.
sure they would be like, no, guys, nah, please. They're not, no, not me. They're the Lord. Oh, right. Fine. Call it a Nelson temple. You want to come to Montana? I think I'm going to do a quick tripper.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm not joking. Road trip. Drive up, go see it, stay the night, drive back. That's it.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe we'll make an episode out of it. What else? We go to Vanuatu, which I contend the only reason that people know it is from Survivor Series season 9.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
I need to catch up on those.
they were there, and I would feel pretty confident, and that's how the only reason that people even would know how to say it here in the United States.
Yeah, so the groundbreaking of the Port Vila Vanuatu Temple was announced for March 4th, so just about a month from now. So the temple was announced back in October 2020, and then we got a rendering almost a year ago, last May. It's 10,000 square foot, kind of like Helena, but it kind of has a spire in the front of the temple rather than in the middle. They're building like a patron housing in the back. They're tearing down the meeting house that it's there. And then that's going to serve the two stakes and the districts that are in Vanuatu as well as New Caledonia.
Now, is it an arrival center? Because you marked that there's not only the temple but an arrival center. Is that like where you go and you show your recommend and that, or is that like lodging?
It's more like lodging and dressing rooms and just places to wait for people that aren't going to the temple.
Oh, okay.
So in maybe other eras there would be like a small like a larger waiting room or a cafeteria in the temple and stuff like that. But now
Mhm.
we've shifted to where temples are strictly for ordinances, and then in a lot of these countries where you have to travel to go to the temple, they have these arrival centers where you can wait and eat and all that stuff.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So then we travel to the big one, the I would say the OG, but it's not the OG, but one of the OGs. There have been a ton of updates about the Salt Lake Temple. What do we need to know? What's significant, and what is it just? Well, it's been another month. We should probably put up another article about what's changed.
Sure. Well, you know how they're like digging underneath uh the foundation area of the temple. Well, they've completed that. The north and south side are complete, so it's as deep as it will go. And then the area around the church office building is expected to be finished this fall. So we've already seen that there's like a new sign up in front of the view of the temple that's quoting a scripture from Isaiah about the mountain of the Lord.
Hmm.
And then as well as the Main Street Plaza area, that big fountain, that place where the church took over the street in the mid 2000s, maybe 90s. So that area will be finished and open up to pedestrians again.
Is that fountain and pond where everyone gets engaged at Christmas? Is that still there?
That's what it is. I think
Okay.
they're also enlarging it. They said they were
Okay.
enlarging it a little bit.
That's because
So
you had to wait, and here's why. Theory on that. This is from a Reddit thread, because they want people to get engaged quicker. Because if you're trying to wait to get in front of the fountain at Christmas time to be able to get engaged, you'd have to wait hours. So if they make it bigger, the thinking is people can get engaged quicker, subsequently allowing them to get married quicker,
get married quicker.
subsequently allowing them to be able to have families together. I mean, it's exponential.
All the plan. It's all
Yeah.
part of the plan. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, that I wish that were true.
Yeah, so they've started construction on the lower 3 floors, so that will be like the underground part of the temple. On the north side is where they're building the 2 baptistries, some more of the ceiling rooms, the dressing rooms, and all the offices. And so something I did actually, I was at a fireside last night with someone that's working on the Salt Lake Temple. Specifically, they're working on this part of the temple. And they said that this was something that I wasn't sure, but they are using pieces of the old baptismal font to construct one of the new baptismal fonts. So
Oh,
if
that's
you
cool.
follow the news, they took out the old baptismal font in the temple, and they're going to build 2 new ones in the underground part. And so that original oxen and everything will be in that new baptistry.
That's cool. That's awesome. You want to know something even weirder than that? There's a place in Bountiful, this odd place, and I don't have time to get into the reason why I know this, but there are these people that have sort of hoarded old church things, and in like their barn they have the plaster cast for one of the versions of the cattle or of the oxen for the Salt Lake Temple. So they could technically recast using the original model, because these people still have it in their barn.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they're doing.
I would, because these people do not like the church.
Okay. Well, maybe there's more copies. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. They're like,
so
maybe
he's
a
also
copy of a copy.
So the guy was also working on the we talked about that the south area of the temple will have an underground hall with, they said, replicas of ordinance rooms. There'll be a baptistry, ceiling room, and all that. And what he told me is that these ceiling rooms, these rooms, replicas of the temple, will actually not be in the Salt Lake Temple aesthetic, kind of like the turn of the century era, but will just kind of look like your generic temple. So the purpose of that is to, whenever like someone new is going to the temple, they can visit these areas. They'll be as high quality as any other temple, but you'll be able to basically visit this replica of the ordinance rooms.
That makes sense, because how many millions of people a year come to the Salt Lake Temple and go, yeah, I'd like to see inside. And we go, no, you can't. But if we could say, hey, here are the different rooms. This is what this looks like. This is what this looks like. That makes a
But it won't,
ton of
it won't
sense.
won't look like the style of the Salt Lake Temple, just like a generic temple, I guess is
Yeah.
what he told me.
Yeah.
So
Enough to suffice, right? Sufficient enough.
that's right. And then they also started where the North Visitor Center used to be, that area. Some people called it the Space Jesus, the Christus statue with all like the planets and the clouds and everything
Yes.
around him.
Yes.
So they've
I've never
started,
heard him called Space Jesus, but I appreciate it.
that comes from Eli McCann, if you know who that is.
Previous guest of the Cultural Hall.
That's
Sure.
right. He so they'll put gardens over there, and then they're also starting soon the renovations on the Joseph Smith Memorial Building, the Beehive House, and the Lion House. And then they're closing the Assembly Hall temporarily so they can kind of rearrange the buildings around there, the bathrooms and everything. So, and then they're installing the base isolation unit in the bottom of the temple's foundation. And so the church put out this very detailed, like 10-minute long video about how this works. So if you're really interested in earthquake engineering and all that, check out this video.
You can find it in the show notes. Corey has put together just amazing show notes for all of what he's talking about. So, go ahead.
Something that they said in this that kind of got a lot of headlines in the desert news was that the temple weighs as much as an aircraft carrier. And they have a little model of the aircraft carrier next to the temple showing how like large the aircraft carrier is, but like the temple weighs as much as that.
But here's the real question: does the temple float like
No,
an
I would
aircraft
say no,
carrier?
it does not.
Okay.
So
Well, we can't win them all. We can't have everything.
it will float when there's an earthquake. It'll kind of just float on the surface and
I
everything.
appreciate
That's what the isolators are. But what that guy also did tell me is that right now the temple is actually pretty vulnerable.
Mm.
So like if there's a big earthquake in the next 2 years, it's kind of bad news for the temple. So
Eeh.
if that earthquake can just hold off until 2025, then the temple will be fine. But right now it's up in the air.
Yep. It's literally up in the air. I appreciate the joke that you made. We go to New Zealand, and I have a question because I saw a headline and I didn't have any idea what it meant, and then I thought, and this is genuinely the thought process that I went through. I'll be able to ask Corey about it. I'm just going to make sure that I remember to ask the question. The Auckland, New Zealand temple, what is cladding?
I think it's just like the outside stone.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
Sounded a lot cooler than that.
Yeah, this article was paywalled, but I got some information off of churchofjesuschristtemples.org, and that's Rick Scatterfield is this website.
Mhm.
He said that it's actually been stalled for several months, but it seems like it's going again. So it's getting a lot of attention on the highway. The temple is kind of a large building on the main highway there to the airport. In Auckland, they have this thing called the Sky Tower, which is this like large tower that you can go up and see the view of the city, and you can see the temple there. It's the second tallest temple in or second tallest building or structure in the southern hemisphere, so you can see the temple view from up there. And then if the article's correct, it will be finished next year, so 2024.
Hey, we'll take a road trip to Auckland too. Let's do it. We're planning all of our temple trips together, you and me. Anything, any sort of speculation as to why it's been delayed? Is it the weather? Because I know they've had some pretty crummy weather in Auckland, or is it maybe
It could
political,
be
something like that?
probably more like supply chain.
Oh,
It's hard to get things shipped. I mean, a lot of stone comes from China and other parts of the world, so yeah.
so nothing fun, nothing
None I'm
scandalous.
aware of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about Farmington, New Mexico?
Yeah, so they had in a little economic breakfast of the Four Corners area, they had a presentation about the temple from some of the builders and people. Of course, they uh, talked about the economic impact of the temple, how it will attract dollars to the city, the quality of life, and the individuals and families that will come, and the people that may consider retiring because they want to be close to a temple. And so another thing that they talked about was just kind of the designs of the temple. They used some of the local tree pine cone designs. The desert rose is in the stained glass and in the stone cladding, I guess.
I always
So
like to say flora and fauna.
that's
Makes
right,
me-
flora and fauna.
We use some of the local flora and fauna.
And they said this temple will be expected to be finished in early 2025.
Okay, man, we're cruising through it. You haven't included in here a list of new temple presidents. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, the church news kind of drips these out every winter up until when they serve. But what's notable is that a few of these temple presidents are temples that are under construction. So that kind of means that they're probably nearing completion and they're ready to open. So the Bangkok, Thailand temple, the president and the matron were announced. He's a former stake president from Thailand. He's Thai, which is, I think, special because a lot of these new countries that haven't had a temple before, they normally get like a North American president to come
Sure.
and be that first president. But it's notable that the first president is Thai.
That's significant. That's awesome.
And then McAllen, Texas, there's a couple that's actually on a Spanish branch up in San Antonio, and they were former mission leaders in Mexico City. So they'll be the president and matron of the McAllen, Texas temple. And then the Orem, Utah temple, a local guy that was the former president of the Tennessee Nashville mission was called. So the Orem, Utah temple is probably going to be finished next year.
Come
Or
on,
maybe
let's get it done.
late this year, maybe.
Get it. Let's get it, Orem. We've got Provo on here too. A little bit of upcoming renovation clues. I like this. This makes me feel like you're a sleuth.
Yeah, well, I saw this on a Facebook page of local Provo news, and someone had reported that the church had applied to the city. So the church is kind of in the motion of beginning these renovation process of the temple when the Orem temple's finished. So the application was to the city of Provo and asked the city to vacate North Temple Hill Drive in front of the temple in between the missionary field and the temple.
Mhm.
And they want that for private property. And so this is not the first time the church has bought a street in Provo. They bought a segment of 100 100 South. It's just south of the Provo City Center Temple after the Provo Tabernacle burnt down. So kind of similar. The church is kind of trying to redesign the parking lot and everything, and they're kind of saying, well, we mostly just use this street for our purposes, so we might as well buy it and take on the maintenance cost of this driveway that you're maintaining for us.
So do you think that they would change it not to be a street anymore and make it into something else and give it a different layout? Or do you think they just are like, we want it ours?
Yeah, I think they kind of want to reconfigure how the parking lot looks like, how the grounds in front of the temple look like. And so they probably don't want the through traffic. There's probably pretty few through traffic anyways, but yeah. This is also not the first time we talked about Salt Lake bought, in Salt Lake, the church bought Main Street.
Yeah.
A
little more messy than when they bought
more messy.
South in Provo, for sure.
That's right. They also bought 100 East in Manti. That was just kind of the area in front of the temple where they were doing the pageant every year. They used to do that. And then recently in St. George, they've taken over 400 South in front of the temple, between the temple and the parking lot.
Interesting.
So a lot of streets in Utah the church has bought.
We want more streets. That's what we need money for.
Right.
The future is streets, Pharaoh. The future is streets. I have a street just to the south of me I want to purchase.
Yeah, do the application to the city. Ask for
vacate. I'm gonna. I actually have no interest. It's so expensive. That's actually real. The street to the south of me is a private lane, and everybody who lives on that lane has to pay so much money for like snow removal and
to who? The owner?
Yeah. I don't remember the arrangement. I just know that, there's 8 houses and they have to pay an exorbitant amount of money. And I'm like, no, thanks.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything that you're hearing, any rumblings of anything that as you look towards temple, something you're excited for, anything like that?
No, that's about it, I think.
You put it all together and gave it to us. He comes in, he does the temple ticker. Corey the Pharaoh Ward. I'm excited to take this road trip. We'll have to figure out the up and back to Helena, Montana. They've got a really cool Catholic church in Helena, and we'll go see the state capitol building as well. You've been?
No, I said I want to see that.
Oh yeah, no, it's cool. And the state capitol, and I'll tell you about how Helena shouldn't be the capital of Montana, but how it was a ballot stuffing thing. It's a whole deal. We'll talk about it. We'll have 9 hours in the car together.
Okay.
I hope that this episode has nourished and strengthened your body.
Hope that if you weren't able to make it, you'll be able to make it next week.
And that when the time comes, you'll be able to travel home in safety. In the meantime, we'll be saving a seat for you
on the back row
of the Cultural Hall.